You are in for a treat today because, oops, you are all in. So I am excited because with virtual learning, I think one of the biggest questions we get is how can we make this inclusive? Kids are at a distance. And I think we learn through Paula's book and through wonderful parents and educators like Lisa that there are possibilities and there are opportunities for us to make in virtual learning inclusive. And so the complete title of her book is All in 18 Ways to Create Inclusive Virtual Classrooms. So I want to welcome Paula, the author, and I know a lot of people have seen you on our show before. Mm-hmm. And we have a new guest with us, Lisa. Lisa, how are you?
I'm well. Thank you for having me today.
Well, and I want to show that some of you might know, but Lisa is like the background creator of the Facebook group, Educational Strategies for Children with Down Syndrome. And it's a way that I've connected with Lisa. I have learned so many wonderful accommodations and modifications that she does at her school, and then how she uses them with her daughter. So I'm thrilled because she and her daughter have a story in Paula's new book. So we are all three here gathered together to have fun and celebrate inclusive virtual learning. So yay!
Yay! And thank you for having us. We are delighted. And when Charmaine comes calling, we respond immediately. We are hashtag all in for
yes.
anything that you're doing. Visions and Voices. We love you. We love the show. Everything.
Thank you. And I was telling Paula and Lisa about like my way of using virtual screens. And so today we are going to be talking about structures and strategies. But one of the other key features of Paula's book is what she calls that we have to have that call to action. And in my language, that's keep on keeping on. So we're going to be talking about that today, and that's going to be a foundation. These are the main topics that we're going to be covering: how to connect with families and educators during remote learning. We're also going to be talking about plan for paras. I have lots of parents that ask about, how can paraeducators be used more effectively during virtual learning? So we'll do that. And Paula, how would you like to kick us off here?
Well, first of all, Lisa was asking me, she said, I know when you and Charmaine get together, there's always like a prop, like competition going on. So I thought one of the ideas in the book, in some of my writing, I've shared an idea of wearing a human billboard, where you wear a sign with a concept or vocabulary word as a way to be engaging. And we use that as a different mode of representation. But we can't see the billboard during virtual. So I thought I would bring in my headband. And I would like to say, on behalf of me and my partner, I don't do this, but hi. Thanks for having us. I bring my hairstyle into something different and new. So those of you that have been using the billboard, we're all transitioning to headbands now. I'm going to do that for Charmaine. You're the one person we knew would love that. Okay. Thanks for having us. With your prop, I love it. I will also go you one with the heart. I love you and I love being here. Charmaine, is this an okay time while you're introducing the book for me to kick off with the Mutual Admiration Society and talk a little bit about your book? Is this an okay time to do that?
Yes, you can.
Okay, so and it'll lead me into why I wrote this, but Charmaine was definitely one of the biggest thought leaders when the pandemic hit. It was one of the first places I turned to, and many parents and many teachers turned to. What are we going to do? Not only did you have expert after expert here with live, but you also were really generous in doing things like, sharing your own resources and ideas. And so I didn't realize until recently that you had this wonderful guide available, which every advocate needs. I mean, it's got this great IP centerpiece, and it is such a great price point for folks. And I want everybody to know that these are very, very, I think, perfectly paired resources, like they're companion pieces. Yes. And I'm so glad to know that they're both out there in the world. So can you show that?
Yes. Thank you so much, Paula. And as Paula said, her book is just chock full of wonderful strategies and engaging stories. So mine is kind of more from an advocacy point of view. Paula is the fun person that has fun ideas you can do with your kids. So buckle up, because we're ready for some fun, right?
Buckle up, headband up, whatever you want to do. Well, thank you so much, and I want to reinforce that. I want to say, thank you for highlighting Lisa being here too. So that's a good way for us to kick off, is to say that this is not all me. Not by any stretch of the imagination. So she's going to talk about actually several stories and examples, not only as a parent, but also as a paraprofessional. So I'll just kind of go over those little intro slides very quickly. This is me if you don't know me, and I'll just say really quickly, my website is my name in case you want to get more information. But I do mostly work inside of school. I do in-service consulting now. I used to be a professor of ed, a school teacher, a special ed teacher, and now I do a lot of work with teachers that are currently in the field. And of course, as the years start, and this is one that Charmaine asked me to highlight, and that is, how do we really reach out to parents and keep doing that all year long? So when this all started, I had a little survey on my Facebook page, and I said, what do you need from teachers right now? And almost every single parent, forget about materials, forget about lesson, support. It was like communication, communication, communication. Oh, and communication. So that was really clear. And everything from what are the expectations to just my child misses the teacher. And so my child needs to connect with those folks. So one of the tips in the book, this first section is all about communication. And one of the most sort of, very simple and easy ideas is just find a format. It doesn't have to be this formal, but find a way to survey your families more than once. And parents, just go ahead and send something like this in if you're not getting back. Like saying, hey, by the way, here are some of my concerns. Ideally, I would like to communicate, this often. Here are some preferences. And so you may even have to initiate that. But what I'm telling teachers is you need to do this probably more than once. And parents, you may need to update your with your teachers more than once. So the fact that, how often do you want to communicate? And what is best for you? And I always say, to teachers, don't be surprised that sometimes, right, families will be like, I'm getting too much communication. Whereas others say, I'd be happy with just a check-in with my child. Or if we could just do something monthly where we outline the curriculum, that would be enough. So you might be surprised at what shows up. And that's why I think this very detailed asking about not only qualitatively, what do you need, but, what's the frequency? And these are some of the questions that I'm suggesting, are part of a dialogue. And so we'll just pause for a second in case you want to take a picture of that. But these might be things that, again, as a family member, you can just, share, even if it's unsolicited, and just say, hey, I went to this webinar, here's some questions, and I'm hoping that my responses may help you with planning. Things like, how would you like it to look this year? And also, what's the most important goal? And, and I know a lot of you, might very clearly be able to sort of perceive that a parent that has a child that has some of the same needs as yours may have a very different goal. Some may say mental health. Some are saying, I just want my child to thrive in math because it's his favorite. Some may say, I just want him to keep those couple of connections with kids. And so educators need to know what is most important in such an odd year. Also, what are the benefits? Do not be shy. Do not hold back on this. Let your teams know what's actually working. Is your kid getting more sleep, and is it having a miraculous outcome? Is your child getting more choice, and is that really helping and benefiting? Those are things you might be able to bring into face-to-face, into subsequent school years. Some high school parent told me, we can actually sample lots of classes in the catalog just by going in and out for a few minutes in those first weeks of school and find a good match. And we're looking at a wider range of classes. And even what are specific ideas for inclusion? And I think I'm encouraging all teachers to really take that one to heart, and parents, send those laundry lists. Whether or not they're all honored, get them out there. What are your specific ideas about what participation can look like and what adapted work can look like? You never know. Lisa's going to say this. I don't want to take her thunder. You never know. Your requests might be honored. And and that kind of brings me to talking about some of the para stuff too, because I was working with a bunch of co-teachers today, and one of the things I was saying was, if you're using some of these strategies, involve your paras. So if you're going to wear your headbands during your sight word practice in kindergarten, your co-teacher and your para can all be wearing rhyming words. I'm so sorry, I can't do this backwards. But maybe I'm wearing cat and you're wearing rat and someone else is wearing hat. And it communicates to all the caring adults in that classroom, we are a team. And it's a very easy way to make something a little multi-sensory as well. So it's a transition too. All right. So I know, Charmaine, you were really saying a lot of parents were talking to you about paras and what can we do with paras. So this won't be enough of a treatment of that subject, but it's a little sampling at least. And I heard from a lot of different folks about this topic and did some interviewing. And then I did this actual chapter or this idea with a administrator from Long Beach, California. Her name's Rochelle Martin, and so some of these ideas belong to her. But this is Lauren Ahrens, and she is actually the inclusion facilitator at my child's high school. And I just love this idea that she starts with really these invitations into her team. So she's got her little Bitmoji classroom, and just very welcoming, way to remind her paraprofessionals on her team, hey, let's get together and have coffee on Mondays and just talk about what's the focus for our students. It's not individual student planning, but just coming together and honoring that team a little bit and making sure that, their emotional needs are taken care of, and that in general, the goals that they've set together, have a plan for implementation. So the first thing is making sure that there are sort of communication structures in place. And Lauren's just adorable as well. And then looking for all the different ways that you can plan for your paras. So I love this picture. This is from a section done by Robin Weckerly, who is this really fantastic writer and wonderful mom advocate out of California. And we see I'm sorry, this is Corey Morris. Never mind. I did this presentation 3 times in a row, and I'm almost forgetting my own name. I think I'm going to put it on my command. Anyway, this is Seth. And Seth is doing a little a check-in, right? So one of the ways that we can use paras is to make sure that kids have some time with a trusted adult, caring adult, as they're doing their independent work, right? They may not even be doing much in the way of interacting, but that person is there as a scaffold or a support so that a parent doesn't have to be and so that there can be reminders in place. Look at your checklist, so that there can be, a little celebration at the end of this, or we can sort of reinforce in language as far as how do you think you're doing so far, and those kinds of things. So I think looking for ways that we can have this larger team for check-in. And I was actually presenting with Corey the other day, and she had this just great story. She said involve everybody in the check-ins, not just paraprofessionals and teachers, but she said one of the favorite check-ins for her son is the one of the administrative assistants in the office, and so he has a check-in with that individual as well. So building in some time for that. Looking for mini lessons as well. This is a table from the book, but I was talking to a lot of these co-teachers today, and I kept saying, when you are doing a lot of this work like this, it's always nice. Like, I'm already looking forward to Lisa sharing so that I can not only sit back and sort of see this from a different lens and look at the, field the questions and things like that, but even just have that pause that helps me regroup. And a lot of classrooms that have paraprofessionals have always done this, but I think it's even more important now when there's so much energy being poured into this direct act of teaching. So we suggest that you look for throughout the day for these mini lesson opportunities. Where in the day can you, either individually as a teacher or as a team, turn it over to the para? Maybe every time you do a brain break, that's led by the para. Maybe every time you have a poll, your paraprofessional is the one who walks students through that poll. Maybe there are curricular routines, like some of your curriculum related songs, some of the games, some of your community builders. And that gives a teaching team time to very quickly message each other, how's it going? I forgot to add that. Don't worry, we'll catch up with it. Things that you'd be whispering in the corner and face to face. But it also gives someone in like Lisa's role as a para, like all caring adults are educators here. And so for that kid that, that really feels honored when we make it true, which is, I think, the promise of collaboration, which is all these adults are educators in this space. One of the things that we are recommending in the book as part of that is to be a little bit maybe more pointed in how you plan for paras. So we're suggesting things like, it's not for every moment every day, but for things that repeat. So for things like maybe the math structure looks very similar every day, or your morning meeting looks similar every day. And maybe creating a lesson plan that helps you to wring the most out of those roles and relationships as possible. So that in this particular plan, that we know that, the teacher is going to be checking in with individual students. And now the paraprofessional can start the students off with a wellness break. And there's a little bit of a cue in that plan for, remind Rachel to choose something from her board, little reminder there. And then in the next section, just some guidance about how to interact with students in the chat. So, if you're watching Juan take his notes with Google Docs, you can insert some ideas. And then finally, when you're in the breakout group, here's how you can interact with students in the breakout group. And because that's a repeating structure in ELA, in the language arts classroom, it was worth it to the team to make a really systematic kind of plan, so that not only is it a memory cue for the paraprofessional to take some of that data, or to give that kind of cue, or to make sure that that there's participation from Rachel. But it's also a reminder to general ed teachers and special ed teachers of all the different ways that our team members can interact in classrooms. If that person cares about, and so many of the students, they just appreciate there being more, several adults that are thinking about them, that are supporting them. So the last thing I'll say about paras is just, because it is, again, a very odd year, but also just because I think in general it's helpful. There's a lot of physical materials that may be needed for kids with disabilities, whether that's through U.S. mail, dropping on the porch, or things that we're using in teaching, like Charmaine's wonderful labels there. Some of these things can be handed over to paraprofessionals. So in fact, one of the teams today was saying, oh yeah, next week on Thanksgiving, we're gonna have these kids in these collaborative groups. We could free our paraprofessional to do some of this for all of us. We could make some of these little handheld emojis. And their idea was, hey, wow, we could have our paraprofessional make these. Look at that. Oh my gosh, look at your little fire. I love the fire. We could make a set for all of us. Everyone, all the three of us, we could all have a set so that we could support each other during lesson. But here's another idea, is having a first then board that has some of these newer options that kids are finding themselves, Calm, Audible, Flipgrid. I call this a purposeful fidget. This is in the book as well, where actually these were designed by a colleague of mine who was a paraprofessional, taking something that's in the content, is in the curriculum, landforms, plot and setting, Pythagorean theorem, whatever it is, and designing these little teacher-created puzzles so that students can be fidgeting during those lessons, but fidgeting with something that's focused on those adapted standards, or those most popular, those standards that have been highlighted for that individual. And this is actually something that Lisa created. Lisa, I'm going to let you talk about this. But again, when you look at this, this is no small thing. And so thank goodness you have the para hat and the parent hat.
Yeah, absolutely. So my daughter's taking chemistry in her senior year of high school, and her special ed teacher that supports this class sent us visuals. And I thought, wouldn't it be great if we could just make it a little bit more hands-on? So I enlarged it, printed it off, and laminated and put Velcro. So now we also have the visuals, so she can do it on like Jamboard or one of the other technology pieces during the class, but we can also reinforce that at home with the hands-on piece. You can take it off and put it on, and it's enlarged, so she really has an opportunity to see it.
I mean, when I looked at this, I thought, I wish I would have had this as a student. The idea of that there's a little element of whimsy to it as well, which I like. And the thing that came to mind for me also, Lisa, was that could also be a purposeful fidget. You could see kids who are sort of assembling this and taking it apart and things like that. So I love that. I think it is an interesting time to reimagine the role of paraprofessionals.
And absolutely. Let me tell you about one of the things. I joined a 5th grade class at the school where I work, and one of the students, his strength is verbal skills. So all the rest of the kids are typing in the answer to a question. So for example, they might be like, what's your favorite Halloween candy? And while they're typing in the answers and the teacher might be chatting about it, then she also makes sure to ask the student that I support, what's your favorite Halloween candy? And then he has a chance to participate as well with the rest of his peers. So I can prepare him a little bit ahead of time, maybe, hey, tomorrow we're going to talk about your favorite candy. Let's talk about that now, so that tomorrow when the teacher's ready, you know what you want to talk about.
And some of those things are actually made easier. You're not having to walk up and whisper in his ear. I mean, that's one of those odd things, having some of these interactions for kids who have more traditional kinds of literacy skills, being able to remind folks in the chat. So those are some odd little benefits that we can draft off of now and later.